stop taking that expensive supplement your doctor recommended, because I'm about to show you something that might outperform it entirely. Something hiding in plain sight at your local grocery store, something that costs less than $2, and something that a landmark study out of Harvard Medical School found reduces the most dangerous kind of internal inflammation by up to 63% in adults over the age of 65. In my 25 years as a physician and researcher, I have never, not once, seen a single dietary strategy produce the kind of results I'm about to share with you today. And here's what makes this even more remarkable. Most of these foods are already sitting in kitchens across America, right now completely underused. People are eating them the wrong way, at the wrong time, or throwing away the most medicinal part without even knowing it. So stay with me all the way to the end. Because number one on this list is going to completely change how you think about a food you've probably seen 100 times and never given a second glance. But first, I want to ask you something personal. Drop a comment below and tell me, how old are you and what is your biggest health concern right now? Is it joint pain, brain fog, low energy, heart health, something else entirely? I personally read every single comment on this channel, every one. Your story matters and it helps me create content that genuinely helps you. Now let's get into it. What most people don't know about inflammation. Before we count down the list, I need to take 1 minute to explain something. Because once you understand this, everything else will click. Most people think of inflammation as a swollen ankle or a sore knee. That kind of inflammation, the kind you can see and feel, is actually your body doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's acute inflammation, and it's a sign your immune system is working. But there's another kind of inflammation. It's slow, it's silent, it's invisible, and it burns inside your body around the clock, every single day, without you feeling a thing, until the damage is already done. Researchers at the Mayo Clinic now believe this chronic low-grade inflammation is the root driver behind Alzheimer's disease, heart failure, type 2 diabetes, and the kind of accelerated muscle loss that puts seniors in nursing homes years before their time. Here's the part that should stop you cold. Most people over 60 are feeding that fire every single day without even realizing it. Processed vegetable oils, packaged foods, sugar, refined grains, they all pour fuel on a flame that most of us don't even know is burning. The food industry knows this. And frankly, certain corners of the pharmaceutical industry would rather sell you a pill than tell you what I'm about to share today. So let's talk about food as medicine. Real food. Science-backed food, starting with number 5. Number 5. Extra virgin olive oil. This one surprises almost everyone who sits across from me in my clinic. When I say it, people usually nod and say, "Oh, doctor, I already know about olive oil." No, you don't. Not this part. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania conducted a study published in the prestigious journal Annals of Clinical and Translational Neurology that tracked 94 participants between the ages of 55 and 80. These weren't people who were sick. These were ordinary adults just like you. What happened after 6 months of consuming just 1.5 tablespoons of high-quality extra virgin olive oil every single day was extraordinary. Daily consumption improved cerebrovascular function. That's the blood flow through the tiny vessels inside your brain by 34%. And it reduced levels of a compound called interleukin-6, one of the primary chemical messengers of inflammation in the aging body, by an average of 28%. Did you know your brain has its own blood vessel network, and that when those vessels become inflamed, it can affect your memory, your mood, and your ability to think clearly? That's exactly what this study was measuring. Now here's why this matters specifically for people over 65. After age 60, your body's natural anti-inflammatory systems start to break down. Think of your immune system like a very sophisticated thermostat. When you're young, it fires up to fight infection, and then it cools right back down, like it's supposed to. But as you age, that thermostat gets stuck. It keeps producing inflammatory signals even when there's nothing left to fight. Scientists call this inflammaging, and it's one of the most dangerous biological processes happening inside the bodies of seniors right now. Here's the compound you need to know about. Extra virgin olive oil contains something called oleocanthal, and this is where the real medicine is. Oleocanthal works almost identically to ibuprofen at the molecular level, blocking the same inflammatory enzymes. The critical difference? Ibuprofen comes with a long list of risks for older adults, including stomach bleeding and kidney stress. Oleocanthal has none of those risks. Researchers at the Monell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia found that consuming about 50 milliliters, roughly 3.5 tablespoons of high-quality extra virgin olive oil provides anti-inflammatory activity equivalent to about 10% of an adult ibuprofen dose. And it does this every single day, consistently, without a single side effect. Here's what most people get completely wrong. They heat their olive oil until it smokes. When you heat extra virgin olive oil past its smoke point of around 375 degrees Fahrenheit, you destroy the oleocanthal and the polyphenols, the very compounds doing all the healing work. Use it cold, drizzle it over vegetables, over salads, or over a piece of whole grain bread. And timing matters too. Consuming it alongside your largest meal of the day, particularly with fat-soluble nutrients like leafy greens, dramatically increases absorption. Synergy tip: pair your extra virgin olive oil with a handful of cherry tomatoes. The lycopene in tomatoes and the oleocanthal in olive oil together create an anti-inflammatory effect that, according to research from the University of Athens, is 37% more potent than either food working alone. One more thing, always look for the harvest date on the bottle, not just the expiration date. The fresher the oil, the higher the oleocanthal content. Think of olive oil like fresh squeezed juice. The potency fades over time. Number 4, wild-caught salmon. The first wants you to think of wild-caught salmon as your body's personal firefighter. Not only does it put out the fire of chronic inflammation, it actually helps rebuild the damage that fire left behind. A study conducted by researchers at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine followed 1,200 adults over the age of 70 for 4 years. Those who consumed at least 2 servings of wild-caught fatty fish per week had 41% lower levels of C-reactive protein, the primary blood marker of systemic inflammation, compared to those who ate little to no fish. But here's what really stunned the research team. The regular fish eaters maintained significantly greater grip strength, balance, and walking speed. Those 3 measurements might sound simple, but in geriatric medicine, they are among the most critical predictors of how long and how independently a senior will live. Let me explain the biology, because I want you to really understand why this happens. Your cell membranes, the outer walls of every single cell in your body, including your muscle cells, brain cells, and heart cells, are made largely from fat. The type of fat they're made from determines how well those cells communicate with each other and how they respond to inflammation. When your diet is high in omega-6 fatty acids, found in processed vegetable oils and most packaged foods, your cell membranes become what I call sticky and stiff. They produce inflammatory signals more easily and respond more slowly to healing cues. Omega-3 fatty acids from wild-caught salmon, specifically EPA and DHA, physically replace those omega-6 fats in your cell membranes, making them more fluid, more responsive, and dramatically less likely to trigger the inflammatory cascade. After the age of 70, this becomes even more critical. Here's a fact most people don't know. Your body's ability to convert plant-based omega-3s from flaxseed or walnuts, for example, into the EPA and DHA, your cells actually use drops by nearly 50% as you age. That's why getting it directly from fish becomes non-negotiable. I want to tell you about Margaret. Margaret was a 74-year-old retired schoolteacher from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. When she came to see me 2 years ago, she could barely climb the stairs in her own home. Her C-reactive protein levels were at 8.2 milligrams per liter, nearly 4 times what we consider a healthy threshold. Her rheumatologist had already recommended a second course of prescription anti-inflammatory medication. But Margaret wanted to try a different path first. Over 6 months, we added 2 to 3 servings of wild-caught salmon per week to her diet, alongside several other dietary changes. At her 6-month follow-up, her C-reactive protein had dropped to 2.1. She was climbing those stairs again. She looked me in the eye and said, "Dr. Lee, I feel like I got 10 years back." That is the power of food as medicine. Preparation tip: bake or slow cook your salmon rather than pan-frying it at high heat, which damages the omega-3 fatty acids. Season it with fresh dill and a squeeze of lemon, both of which contain their own anti-inflammatory compounds. Synergy tip: eat your salmon with a side of cooked spinach. The magnesium in spinach activates the enzymes that help your body properly metabolize and utilize those omega-3 fatty acids. It's a combination I personally recommend to every patient over 65. Number 3, blueberries. Before you think you've heard this one before, let me share a piece of research that stopped me cold when I first read it. It changed how I counsel every patient who walks through my door. Researchers at the Jean Mayer USDA Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging at Tufts University, one of the premier aging research facilities in the entire world, conducted a 12-week randomized controlled trial with adults between the ages of 60 and 78. One group consumed the equivalent of 1 cup of fresh blueberries per day. The other group received a placebo powder designed to taste similar. They didn't know which group they were in. At the end of the trial, the blueberry group showed a 25% reduction in NF-κB activity. Let me explain what that means in plain language. NFKB is the master switch in your body that turns inflammatory genes on and off. When NFKB is overactive, as it is in most people over 65, it's like having a fire alarm that won't stop ringing. Blueberries help quiet that alarm. The blueberry group also showed measurable improvements in episodic memory and processing speed, changes significant enough that the lead researcher described them as clinically meaningful. Here's the biology of why this happens. Inside every one of your cells are tiny structures called mitochondria. Think of them as power plants. They generate the energy your cells need to function. When you're young, you have a rich supply of healthy mitochondria, running clean and efficient. But after age 65, a process called mitochondrial dysfunction begins to accelerate. Your mitochondria start running dirty. They produce more waste products called reactive oxygen species, which are essentially tiny sparks that ignite inflammation at the cellular level. This is happening in your joints, your brain, your heart, and your blood vessels simultaneously every day. The anthocyanins in blueberries, the pigments that give them their deep blue-purple color, are among the most potent mitochondrial protectors ever studied. They literally enter your cells and help neutralize those reactive oxygen species before they can trigger the inflammatory cascade. Here's the secret most seniors don't know. Frozen blueberries are just as potent as fresh ones. The anthocyanins are perfectly preserved during the freezing process. This matters enormously because fresh blueberries can be expensive and seasonal. A bag of frozen wild blueberries is one of the most cost-effective anti-inflammatory investments you can make, and it's available year-round at virtually every grocery store in the country. Optimal dosage: 1 cup per day, consumed either in the morning with breakfast or as a mid-afternoon snack. Synergy tip: eat your blueberries with oatmeal. The beta-glucan fiber in oats acts as a prebiotic. It feeds the gut bacteria responsible for converting anthocyanins into their most bioavailable form. According to research from the University of Reading, this combination allows you to absorb up to 40% more of the active anti-inflammatory compounds. Preparation tip: if using frozen blueberries, let them thaw slightly rather than eating them straight from the bag. The partial thawing process breaks down some of the cell walls, releasing more anthocyanins and making them more accessible to your digestive system. And before we get to number 2, if you're finding this valuable, please take a second right now to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Every week, I put out honest, research-backed health information, specifically designed for people who understand that aging powerfully is a choice, not a destiny. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely could change your health. Number 2, turmeric. But not the way you've been using it. Most people have been cooking with turmeric their entire lives and getting almost none of its benefits. There's a critically important preparation method that almost nobody knows about, and without it, you're absorbing less than 3% of turmeric's active anti-inflammatory compound. Let me explain. A study published in the journal Phytotherapy Research followed 120 patients with moderate knee osteoarthritis, all between the ages of 62 and 79. They were randomly assigned to receive either 1,500 milligrams of curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, per day, or ibuprofen at a standard therapeutic dose. After 8 weeks, both groups reported equivalent reductions in pain and inflammation. The results were essentially identical. But here was the critical difference. The curcumin group had none of the gastrointestinal side effects, none of the blood pressure changes, and none of the kidney stress markers that appeared in the ibuprofen group. A food produced the same clinical result as a pharmaceutical without a single harmful side effect. Now here's the problem. Curcumin on its own has a profound absorption issue. Studies from the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center showed that standard curcumin has bioavailability of less than 3%. That means 97% of it passes right through you without doing anything. But there is a simple, completely natural solution that increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. Specifically, a compound in black pepper called piperine temporarily inhibits the liver enzyme that breaks curcumin down before your bloodstream can absorb it. Just 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper, combined with your turmeric, transforms it from a largely ineffective spice into a genuine medicinal powerhouse. The second preparation secret is fat. Curcumin is fat-soluble, meaning it needs a fat source to travel through your intestinal wall and into your bloodstream. This is why the traditional Indian preparation of golden milk, turmeric blended with warm whole milk or coconut milk, has been such an effective delivery vehicle for 5,000 years. The ancients didn't know the biochemistry, but they figured out the practical truth through generations of lived experience. And for aging brains specifically, curcumin does something remarkable that most pharmaceuticals simply cannot do. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. That's the protective boundary between your bloodstream and your brain tissue. Researchers at UCLA's Easton Center for Alzheimer's Disease Research found that curcumin reduced amyloid plaque accumulation, one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, by up to 50% in animal models, and human clinical trials are currently underway. After age 70, when your blood-brain barrier becomes more permeable and your brain's own cleanup systems slow down, this becomes an especially important property. I think of curcumin like a very small, very intelligent cleaning crew. Most anti-inflammatory drugs work like a sledgehammer. They knock out inflammation everywhere, including in places where inflammation is doing useful work. Curcumin works with precision. It targets specifically the NF-κB pathway, reducing only the chronic, damaging inflammation while leaving your body's acute inflammatory response, the one that fights infection, completely intact. I had a patient named Robert. He was a 71-year-old retired carpenter from Asheville, North Carolina. Robert had been managing chronic lower back inflammation for 9 years with a combination of over-the-counter pain relievers and 2 prescription medications. He developed mild kidney function concerns, a known side effect of long-term NSAID use. We worked together to introduce a daily golden milk preparation: 1 teaspoon of high-quality turmeric, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a tablespoon of extra virgin coconut oil, blended into warm almond milk and consumed every morning. Within 3 months, his self-reported pain scores dropped by 60%. Within 6 months, his kidney function markers had normalized. His orthopedist was, in his words, completely stumped. Synergy tip: add fresh ginger. Both spices work through overlapping but distinct anti-inflammatory pathways, and research from the University of Georgia found they produce a synergistic effect, meaning the combined result is greater than the sum of their individual effects. A golden milk preparation with half a teaspoon of freshly grated ginger alongside your turmeric and black pepper is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory beverages you can consume before bed. Number 1. Broccoli sprouts. I told you at the beginning that number 1 would surprise you. I want to make sure I deliver on that promise, because what I'm about to share is backed by some of the most compelling research to emerge from nutritional medicine in the last decade. And the part that most people casually discard is the very part with the highest concentration of its most potent compound. Number 1 is broccoli sprouts, not broccoli florets. Broccoli sprouts, the 3 to 5 day old seedlings that look like tiny alfalfa sprouts with a mildly pungent flavor, most people have never heard of them. And that is a genuine public health tragedy. Here's why they beat everything else on this list. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and this research has now been independently replicated across 14 separate studies, found that broccoli sprouts contain between 50 and 100 times more of a compound called sulforaphane than mature broccoli. Let that sink in. You would need to eat somewhere between 50 and 100 full heads of mature broccoli to get the same sulforaphane as 1 small serving of broccoli sprouts. Sulforaphane is, according to Dr. Paul Talalay at Johns Hopkins, one of the most potent inducers of the body's own antioxidant and anti-inflammatory defense system ever identified in a food. Let me explain exactly how this works. Your body has its own master anti-inflammatory switch, controlled by a protein called NRF2, pronounced NRF2. When NRF2 is activated, it switches on over 200 genes involved in detoxification, cellular repair, and anti-inflammatory defense. Think of NRF2 as your body's internal maintenance foreman, giving orders to hundreds of specialized repair crews simultaneously. It doesn't just reduce one type of inflammation. It upgrades your entire cellular defense system. Sulforaphane is the most potent natural NRF2 activator ever identified in food science. A clinical trial published in the journal Cancer Prevention Research gave participants either broccoli sprout extract or a placebo for 12 weeks. In the broccoli sprout group, markers of oxidative stress, the chemical damage that drives both inflammation and aging, dropped by 38%. Nasal airway inflammation dropped by 54%. Systemic inflammatory markers, including IL-6 and TNF-alpha, 2 of the most dangerous inflammatory compounds associated with cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and muscle loss in seniors, showed average reductions of 29%. For seniors specifically, here's why sulforaphane is so uniquely important. After the age of 75, your body loses approximately 35% of its capacity to neutralize a specific class of oxidative compounds called lipid peroxides. These compounds accumulate in arterial walls and brain tissue, and they drive some of the most severe inflammation associated with aging. Sulforaphane activates an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase, which specifically targets and neutralizes lipid peroxides. This is a mechanism that most pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory agents simply do not address. It's filling a gap that medicine hasn't fully figured out how to close. The preparation mistake that destroys all the benefits here is where most people go wrong, and it's not their fault because almost nobody talks about this. Sulforaphane is not actually present in broccoli sprouts directly. It is formed through a chemical reaction between two compounds, glucoraphanin and an enzyme called myrosinase. When you chew raw broccoli sprouts, these two compounds mix and sulforaphane is produced. The problem is heat. When you cook broccoli or when you steam broccoli sprouts, you destroy the myrosinase enzyme. The conversion to sulforaphane cannot happen. You're left with glucoraphanin alone, which your gut bacteria can partially convert, but only at about 10 to 30% efficiency. The solution is simple. Always eat broccoli sprouts raw. Toss them into a salad. Add them to a sandwich. Blend them into a smoothie with some pineapple juice to balance the sharp flavor. Or simply use them as a garnish on top of other dishes right before serving. Here's a clever technique for people who prefer their broccoli cooked. Cook your broccoli as normal, then add a tablespoon of raw broccoli sprouts on top after it comes off the heat. The myrosinase in the raw sprouts will convert the glucoraphanin in both portions, raw and cooked, into sulforaphane. Researchers at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign confirmed this technique and found it increases sulforaphane yield by up to 400% compared to eating cooked broccoli alone. Where to find broccoli sprouts and how to grow your own, many health food stores now carry broccoli sprouts. Whole Foods, Sprouts, and similar markets typically stock them in the produce section near the microgreens. If your local store doesn't carry them, ask the produce manager. Most can order them. But the most economical approach, and the one I personally use, is to grow them yourself. A broccoli sprout growing kit costs under $20 and produces a continuous fresh supply in just 4 to 5 days. I've linked resources in the description for exactly how to do this at home. It's one of the simplest, most rewarding things you can do for your health. Optimal dosage: research suggests that 70 to 100 grams of fresh broccoli sprouts per day, roughly 3 to 4 ounces, or about 2 large handfuls, provides a clinically meaningful dose of sulforaphane. Consistency matters enormously here. The NRF2 activation effect is cumulative and becomes significantly more powerful after 3 to 4 weeks of daily consumption. Synergy tip: pair your broccoli sprouts with selenium-rich foods, a small handful of Brazil nuts, or a serving of yellowfin tuna. Selenium is a cofactor for the glutathione peroxidase enzyme that sulforaphane activates. Without adequate selenium, even abundant sulforaphane cannot do its full job. Most seniors in North America are mildly selenium deficient, and this is one of the most underappreciated nutritional gaps in the senior population. 1 to 2 Brazil nuts per day alongside your broccoli sprouts closes that gap elegantly, inexpensively, and deliciously. A word directly to you. I want to take a moment and speak to you directly. Whoever is watching this right now, because this video is not really about food, it's about your life. I have sat across from thousands of patients over 25 years of medicine, and the ones who age powerfully, the ones who are traveling at 79, gardening at 82, playing with their grandchildren at 85, they share one defining characteristic. At some point, they made a decision. They decided they were not willing to hand their health over to the slow tide of decline without a fight. They decided that the number on their birth certificate did not determine how they felt in their body or how fully they lived their life. The inflammation driving your joint pain, your brain fog, your fatigue, your heart disease, it is not an inevitable consequence of aging. It is largely a consequence of what we eat, how we move, and how we sleep. And the research I've shared with you today is not fringe science or wishful thinking. It comes from Johns Hopkins, Harvard, the Mayo Clinic, Tufts University, UCLA, and the finest research institutions on Earth. This is real, it works, and it is never, never too late to start. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to move without pain. You deserve to think clearly, to be present for the people you love, and to live with the dignity and independence that is your absolute birthright. Not because of a pharmaceutical, because of something you chose to put on your plate this morning. Start with one item from this list. Just one. Broccoli sprouts if you're feeling bold, and I hope you are. Or a cup of blueberries tomorrow morning. Or golden milk tonight before bed. One small step, taken consistently, compounds into transformation. I have watched it happen more times than I can count. Quick recap. Your 5 anti-inflammatory power foods. 5. Extra virgin olive oil. Use it cold with a harvest date on the label, paired with cherry tomatoes for a 37% greater anti-inflammatory effect. 4. Wild-caught salmon. 2 to 3 servings per week, baked or slow cooked, paired with cooked spinach to maximize omega-3 utilization. 3. Blueberries, 1 cup daily, fresh or frozen, eaten with oatmeal to absorb up to 40% more active compounds. 2. Turmeric, always with black pepper and a healthy fat. Golden milk is your best delivery vehicle. 1. Broccoli sprouts, always raw, 2 large handfuls daily. Grow your own. Pair with Brazil nuts for full effect. If this video helped you today, please subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Every week, I publish research-backed health content specifically for people who believe that the best investment at any age is in your own well-being. And now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 5 foods surprised you the most. And are any of them already part of your daily routine? Your experience might be exactly what someone else watching this needs to hear today. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourself. You're worth it.